Go.
Standing at the intersection of reality and legend. Welcome to Spooky Crossroads with your hosts, Chris Balzano and Tim Weisberg, only on Spooky TV.
Good evening and welcome to Spooky Crossroads. It must be Wednesday. My name is Chris Balzano. I am here with my favorite person in the paranormal, my haunted objects blood brother, my spooky Southcoast soulmate, Tim Weisberg.
What's crappening?
Not that I gotta tell you, back in the day, every Tuesday morning, I used to wake up, and this is a true confession time. Every Tuesday, I used to wake up, and I used to have that, not Vanessa Williams. What the hell's that chick's name? And you know And so I wonder if I could fly into the. That's now you are the champ of that new little song game on the app on the phone. So
yeah, Sound Pop.
Yeah, you got to tell me who that chick is. You got to remind me of that.
I didn't really get it from what you were singing
oh
there.
My word, Michelle Branch, maybe. And she had that song on the piano. You know what I'm saying? Everyone makes fun of it. It was, yeah. I used to wake up every Tuesday humming that song, okay? Because I was so gosh darn excited for Gilmore Girls that would be on later that night. Okay, that's a totally true confession. I know, it's out there now. I was a Gilmore Girls fan. Anyone who likes yes, Vanessa Carlton, thank you. Anyone who likes good writing, and anyone who's a fan of the walk and talk, you've got to go back and watch some of those episodes of Gilmore Girls. Yes, it's a chick show. Good character development, good writing. My point being, yes.
I was going to say, now my problem with that show, though, was the conversations were unreal. Nobody's that cute in real life. But then again, you're a big Aaron Sorkin fan, and I find his characters to be way too cute for real life, too, so...
And I've been watching some Gilmore Girls episodes lately, and I'm just like, Lorelai is, one of the greatest women of all time. And if she ever really existed in real life, I would be both annoyed and attracted to her in such equal measure that it would make for the perfect romance.
I can't watch it now without thinking of that scene in Bad Santa, so...
Well, there are a lot of things I'm thinking about when I'm watching that.
Why the hell did my picture freeze, by the way?
I don't know, but it's kind of like you look very much in deep thought, and so I'm gonna go with it because it's a good shot of you. It looks like that, or like you just discovered something. My point being,
yes, sorry.
My whole Vanessa Carlton. That's okay. My Vanessa Carlton, Lorelai Gilmore spiel is that I wake up on Wednesdays humming Brad Trolson's song, the official Spooky Crossroads theme song, because I'm that excited to get on the air and air some shit. And so I actually find, and I think it's one of those catchy things that once you start it, you really can't stop, and it has no end. It just goes round and round. It's actually only a part of the song. So I don't know if you had that kind of passion for it as I do.
I don't know. I mean,
and I mean the show, not the song.
Well, I was going to I say generally with theme songs, like the rule of thumb is 30 seconds.
Yeah.
And so that one, like I can actually get up and take a bathroom break during that one.
I actually went to the bathroom during it this week, but that's okay.
Move.
Um, I see. I had to keep it that way because it builds on it. There you are. You're unfrozen now, fool. It builds, and I like that. I dig the fact that it builds and the new thing. It's kind of like every week we're adding a new layer. No, it's not. There's no symbolism to it. I just liked it. I want to get to the part where he screams. So that's my gig. I'm sticking to it.
Well, yeah, it looks like I unfroze slightly, so we'll see what happens.
Well, I guess that's the way of things. You and I were talking right before we got on air.
I better let it.
About last week's Spooky Southcoast.
Yes.
And it's kind of like two different kind of things, I guess, that play off that. And we'll talk about the canceled guest, not in terms of like a finger pointing kind of way, because that kind of crap happens all the time.
Douchebag. No, I don't know. I'm just kidding.
But in some of the things that you and I were talking about last week about, not on Spooky Crossroads or Spooky Southcoast, but just kind of in chit-chatting about some of the things you want to explore in the paranormal. I'm not sure if you're ready to unveil those kind of deep ideas.
I think we should, because I don't fucking remember what we talked about, so I have no idea what you're talking about. So let's do it.
And the second thing, which was probably the one I kind of wanted to open up with, was this this idea that one of the Starborn twins, are they still twins if they're not together? Do you still call her the Starborn twin?
Well,
if she's by herself.
Well, yeah, they're twin sisters.
Right.
So I mean, you're never not a twin if you're a twin, you know.
So she's even referred to as a twin, or I always forget which one's which, unfortunately, because I have not spent as much time or seen them like up close as many times.
Oh no, I don't know. I always mess them up too. It doesn't matter.
So, yeah. But I want to get your thoughts on some of the things that she was saying, and I want to start by saying this. We were criticizing Picture Yourself Capturing Ghosts on Film before we came on air tonight. I read some of the reviews that have been online about that because I kind of avoided all contact with that book, and I was looking at them, and they're really bad. Like, they're really bad reviews.
Like, they're harsh reviews?
Very harsh, and I don't think they're unfairly harsh. But the funny thing is, I got my royalty check from Cengage last week.
That reminds me, I'm going to tell you a story later on about Cengage, but go ahead.
Okay, I got my royalty check, and it showed that once again for like the 27th consecutive quarter, there were more copies of Picture Yourself Capturing Ghosts on Film returned to Cengage.
Nice.
From retailers than sold. And so once again, it has been a negative. It's Picture Yourself Ghost Hunting, sells pretty well. And then it's like you see those horrible parentheses, which if you know accounting or anything like that means subtract. And I think it was something like 43 copies were returned in the last quarter. So that's like, not people returning them to the store, but like Amazon be like, dude, we can't sell these.
Yeah.
But I was looking at it because for anyone who follows me or Tim on Facebook or Spooky South on Facebook maybe knows, my school year's already started. I am actually 3 days in. I've already given 2 homework assignments.
You're a dick.
Aren't I though? They're really easy assignments. There were assignments that were supposed to be done in class, and only like one person, because they teach a lot of remedial kids, didn't finish it in class. I'm like, dude, I said 1 + 1. You just have to put 2 and put on a sheet of paper and hand it in, and then you get full credit. But of those, I'm teaching a photography class, which in essence is a yearbook class. I'm teaching yearbook, basically making the yearbook. And so I jokingly said, I want to use that as my textbook. I want to use Picture Yourself Ghost Hunting. I want it to be the 32 copies that don't get returned.
Yeah, because you're trying to line your own pocket. Yeah, we understand.
Like every college professor in the face of the earth.
Right, exactly.
Trust me, I used to buy books for Suffolk University Law Library. Sometimes those professors would actually make students get different editions of the same book so they could compare and contrast.
Nice. It's good.
I know.
Good marketing.
And we're going to get a laugh at it and stuff like that. But I have now had that class 2 times. The first class was interrupted, and I have actually gone into that book. I've actually gone into that book not as a ghost book or anything like that, but as in a how to like do really mess up things with your camera and take bad pictures.
Mm-hmm.
So I am here tonight. The very first thing I'm going to do, other than praise Lorelai Gilmore, is I am going to introduce the world to picture yourself capturing ghosts on film, because while it doesn't do a very good job of being flashy, I think.
Haha, no pun intended. Flash.
Funny.
Yeah.
I think it's got some good things in there. It's got some really good, how to take bad photographs and how to not take bad photographs, and the ghost part of it second. So that's my shtick on pictures of capturing ghosts on film.
See, I've got the whole thing figured out about that book. There's nothing wrong with the book itself. The book itself is very good. The problem is the title. And I'm not talking about the fact that it's the most awkward sounding title since Fiona Apple's second album. I'm saying it's because the name of the book is Picture Yourself Capturing Ghosts on Film. By the time the book came out, who was using film anymore?
Right.
So they're automatically dating the book just by titling it that.
By the time I was writing it, who was using film?
Exactly.
I mean, it's not like this was written in 1923 or something like that. This is, but 2 or 3 years old. How old's my daughter? 3. So it's 3 years old.
But then again, picturing yourself capturing ghosts on recorded media in digital format would probably have been even more of a tongue twister.
You know what? I still wish they had, and they were really centered on it. No, it's got to be, it's got to be just about that. We don't, and I think they were planning on it being more than one book.
Yes, picturing yourself capturing ghosts on audio, picture yourself capturing ghosts on carrier pigeon, whatever.
And they really didn't understand the fact that this is really they all could have been the same book, and
Right.
wouldn't have been a better title if it was like picture yourself like capturing ghostly evidence.
Yes, absolutely.
That book I can sell. That book I can sell. Capturing ghosts on film ain't doing no flowing off my tongue.
Right.
So I don't, but, and then I think in the interim of that, it's not a great book, but in the interim of that, I hate to say it, but Psychic Tiffany killed the series.
Really? You think so?
From what I understand, that book bombed. Which is odd because I see it on a lot of things like Listmania and all that stuff like that.
Right, and I thought that was a book that the world was waiting for.
Right, I'm just not sure if it delivered.
Well, I've never read it, so
right, either.
I did not get the gratis copy, so I did not read it.
I just know from like some behind the scenes kind of stuff. Although, from what I gather, I can only imagine, because I'm hearing it in pop culture references and things like that. I would imagine Jeff's book, Picture Yourself, Legend Tripping, is doing very well.
You would think that, wouldn't you?
So, but obviously, that's kind of a horse of a different color, if you will, because it's Jeff with the push behind it.
Right.
So who knows? I think, Picture Yourself Capturing Ghostly Evidence is much tighter. And, I feel really bad because in a lot of ways, I stole that book when I was writing it, or when I was approached to write it. Excuse me. Originally, I had proposed it for Josh Montello, who is for the Berkshire Paranormal Group. And I had said, I've got this guy. He's someone I really respect. Here's a really good idea for a book. And Sen Gage came back to me. Notice how I'm using the big corporate name as opposed to the individual who said it. Said to me, okay, A, no one knows who the heck he is. B, he's not on TV, so there's no, like, what's the push going to be? What's the media push going to be?
Right.
And C, anyone who knows Josh knows he had his own personal issues that were happening just about the same time that book was being booked.
If you Googled his name, paranormal stuff was not the first thing that came up.
Right. And Josh is a great guy, and I think Josh is a really good paranormal thinker, and I think he does a lot of in terms of he's trying to move the field forward. He's trying to be innovative.
Right.
and so I had to go back to him at probably one of the lowest times in his life and be like, dude, they love the idea, they don't like you. Um, which, obviously that's not true. It's not that they didn't like him, but they didn't think he could sell the book. And so what I what I did was I bought the idea from him, pretty much. Um, and I, we agreed to split the upfront, split the advance, and then split the royalties. You know,
Wow.
and it wasn't a 50-50 split. It wasn't even, but I mean, it was
Sure, because you were doing all the work.
right, right. Although, if you look at that, like 75% of those pictures are his pictures. But I feel so bad because the book has never really paid off. It's never really paid out. And as a matter of fact, it's cut into the sales of my other one. And so I want to write Josh a real big check, for like $8 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But as I do the math, I'm like, this book still is a drain on the other book. It's still not making money. So I feel bad about that. So I wish it, for a friend. Yeah.
Sorry, I was gonna say Dave Francis mentioned in the chat room that they should combine them, and I think that would be a way that they could salvage those volumes, would be to take both of those books, package them together, and also have you write a new package around those as well.
Yeah.
And kind of update them. I mean, if anybody should have written a book about picturing yourself capturing ghosts on film, it should have been Dave, because I don't know anybody that can break down a photograph as much as he can.
Well, my suggestion on that is to contact our publishers, who are part of them their own, or they own, whoever, depending on how it works, by Adams. Adams is in that as part of that family, and Dave, get ready to write the Everything Ghostly Picture or Ghostly Evidence. You can even take the title, the Everything Ghostly Evidence book, and I think Adams would try to sell that.
I think it would be better if, instead of doing like what you did, if somebody took all the crap photos from the internet and got people's permission to repost them, and and used actual evidence that was claimed as real, we'll say.
Yep.
Like what Dave and Topher have been doing with the Worst Paranormal page, something along those lines. That would be the way. And there may be some legalities around that. Like, I don't think anybody's ever actually researched the legalities of whether or not, if somebody posts a picture up on Facebook, if you can use it. I mean, Facebook owns all the photos that are put on Facebook, not you.
Right.
So there may be a way that you can take these pictures and find a way to put them all together, and then basically shit all over these groups in published book format. But anyway, I mean, that's
but once again, you run into the fact that who's going to buy that book? Can you ever sell enough copies of that book to get it out there? Because the people who you want, your target audience, the ones with disposable cash, are not the ones who are going to be like, yes, you're right. I have a passing fantasy with the paranormal, and I want to know how to take ghostly photos myself.
And people need to realize, everybody in the paranormal field, this went up my ass this week so bad. I've suddenly gotten an increased amount of friend requests on Facebook from different paranormal group people, different investigators, people that are parts of groups and everything. And it seems like every person out there is like working on a book or working on a pilot. And you have to understand that while you think there's a huge audience for a paranormal book, the publishers don't. Because there's just not that many people that are interested in it in a general sense. That's why we had to write Haunted Objects the way that we did. Because if we wrote it as an investigative piece of journalism breaking down the concept of a haunted object without presenting the spooky stories to hook people in, it never would have flown because it wouldn't sell.
Yeah, I mean, I see it because I can tell by my students' reactions. Like if I'm reading them a book, and it is an investigative book, or it's one that's more of like, let's talk about this some of the deeper things here. They don't want to friggin' hear it. You know what I'm saying? But then I pull out one that's kind of like just more straight to the story, and they love it. You know what I'm saying? People like the paranormal, but people don't like the ABCs of the paranormal.
Right.
You know, which is cool. They should. You know what I'm saying? Like that. That's why that part of it should be left or to people who are really interested in it, and they're the ones that buy those kinds of books.
And I want to say, happy birthday, James Randi, before I say this, because look at magic, okay? Stage magic. 95% of the people don't give a shit how the magic happens. Right. They just want to watch the show. And then there's the 5% that want to break it all down and figure out just exactly how the trick is done. And they all have their different reasons for doing it, and that's kind of what it is with the paranormal. 95% of the people want a ghost story, and then 5% of the people want to figure out why a ghost can happen, right. What else it could be, all the nuts and bolts that you were talking about.
And I think that balance should be there. I think that sounds like a pretty gosh darn good balance to me. Like that's a good ratio. I'm a mathematician now. I'm a math teacher now, so I have to use these. Everything should be in proportion and ratioed and integers. Let me just tell you, the absolute value of this show is quite low.
The value of this show is pi. Like, as in, I could really use some pi right now. But what was it that I was talking about for the direction of the paranormal that you were talking about? Because,
well, as I was using my Kohl's cash.
I still can't believe you pay tax on shoes. But then again, you pay income tax, so I guess it works out.
Well, here's the funniest part. I know this is just a little bit of a commentary or whatever. Okay, but it was supposed to be Florida was doing this whole tax-free back-to-school thing so that you can get clothes and shoes and all this stuff like that, and notebooks and pencils and all this stuff to go back to school. So as a reward, we're going to make a tax-free weekend, and back-to-school supplies are tax-free. So it's not like when they have in Massachusetts and even the cars are tax-free and stuff like that or whatever. There's expensive things. Mm-hmm. So I go there and I'm at Kohl's. Do they have Kohl's up there?
We do, yes.
In New England? Okay.
He says that like he's never been to New England before.
That place that you're from, that Massachusetts, they're big here. They're like on every corner. A Bell's and a Kohl's are always right next to each other. And I went in and I'm buying the shoes and there was a book there. So I'm like, I had bought my son some Ninjago t-shirts because he had been stung by a wasp and I felt bad and I wanted to give him like a little present, blah, blah, blah. And of course I got to get something for the little girl, so she doesn't feel out of place. So I'm like, oh, I'll get her this book. Books, not tax-free.
Huh.
And I'm like, what? Okay, so back to school supplies don't include actual books? No. Books were still taxed. That pissed me off. You know what pisses me off more when it comes to that? And this is probably a topic for another different show. The Bible is tax-free. Did you know that? If you go into a bookstore, this is my second Suffolk Law Library reference. If you go into a bookstore and buy a Bible, you don't pay tax on it.
So
you go into a bookstore and you buy a copy of the Quran, you pay tax on it. And really? I know because I have several copies. You go in and you buy the Satanic Bible, you definitely pay tax on it.
Double
tax. You pay double tax for all the Christians who aren't paying for the Bible. Isn't that crazy?
It is. It is crazy.
I mean, that's gonna be anyway. Those are my tools. So I'm at Kohl's, and I'm talking with excitement about last week's guest, who was supposed to come in, whose name is Sable. I remember, but I can't remember his first name.
John Sable.
John and his wife were gonna come in, and he is a paranormal archaeologist. Mm-hmm. You can kind of think of it as like a cross between Indiana Jones and I would kind of say the Sam character from Quantum Leap, and a ghost hunter. He in that he often like brings things back to where they're supposed to be to maintain balance in the universe. You're frozen again too, by the way. And you were, and the reason why I had first talked to him was that he had mentioned, or he had posted something about, he was getting really aggravated that these companies were offering to paranormally certify a location, historically paranormal kind of thing. And this wasn't like pay pay some crackhead ghost investigator, and they certify it with like something they print off their computer. No, this was like the state or the county actually certified your place. This is the way they would historically as being haunted. And they were pushing for this, and he was like, "That's absolutely ridiculous. They've done no research." And it was a really interesting like idea of like, really, should we start certifying things? And you made the comment that the paranormal is normal. Am I catching fire in a bottle here? Lightning in a bottle? You remember what I'm talking about now? Remember this?
Expand a little bit more, because I do say that quite a bit, but
and you're talking about how the paranormal has got to the point that is pretty mundane.
Right. Well, yeah, we've reached the point where there's no longer that negative stigma with being haunted.
And that like it now was a positive.
Right. It's now it's a marketing point.
It's a marketing point.
But I still run into problems still to this day, trying to set up legend trips locations and spots because, they don't like the idea of bringing a bunch of ghost hunters into the place. But, more and more places are starting to accept the fact that they're perceived as haunted.
And why do you think that shift is happening? First of all, I guess I would say. I mean, is it just exposure? Is it kind of like because it's more in our face and it's more common that people have
I think it's more of a matter of, in this age of the internet, you can't do anything about it. 10 years ago, if I can give you an example, a real life example, the Millicent Library was posted up on the Shadowlands as being haunted, and they felt that they weren't, and they didn't want to have that reputation, so they asked to have it taken down. And enough stories kept popping up that I guess it kept being put back into the repository there, and so finally they just accepted it. And they said, all right, well, if that's what people want to say, but we're not going to acknowledge it. And from the time that I went for my first investigation there to 2 years later when I did my second investigation, they'd kind of done a total 180 on it. They'd gone from saying, there's nothing here, we don't want to talk about it, to, now they're like, well, we're not saying that it's haunted, but we're not going to care if you say that it's haunted.
Right. And just to kind of address some of the things that are in the chat room, this goes beyond just disclosing that it's haunted. This is using haunted as a selling point for places. So it's even one step further. There are a lot of places where you have to disclose. There's some places where you don't have to disclose. But this is actually profiting from it, and not in a bad way, but more in like I guess we're more commenting on the fact that people feel they can do that. That they can kind of be like, hey, this place is haunted. Isn't that great? Don't you want it even more now? And you would sent me an article probably about a few months ago now, about when we very first started the show, about a couple who didn't like the haunted reputation.
Right.
Yeah. Do you remember that at all? Do you remember the details of that? Because it's kind of
no.
You're like, remember the part where you said it was a few months ago? Yeah. Okay. That speaks for itself.
It's gone from my brain.
But
I do remember I did send you an article, though, which I found interesting, from a real estate magazine about how to market haunted houses.
Mm-hmm. And I then posted that up on Ghost Village because I thought it was really interesting. And actually, it was a few years old even. It wasn't even like it came out, And that's it should have, we've talked about this before. It should have a mystique. The paranormal should have a mystique, but I still don't quite understand why it is. I think it's more than just money, because for you to be able to make money, someone's perception on the other end has to change. Mm-hmm. So you can have a haunted library all you want, but if people aren't interested and willing to accept the fact that something is haunted, that's not going to work. So why are people more willing to be like, that makes complete sense? I like that.
Can I throw out an example here? And I'm not...
Oh, please do.
I'm not making any judgments here, and I don't want this to fall into a discussion of anybody's character or any situation or anything, but look at the Victorian in Gardner. Okay, in Gardner, Massachusetts. It's billed as the Haunted Victorian Mansion. And the...
Now.
Yes. But look at how that whole thing came about. You know what I mean? Just the fact that there's so much uncertainty around it. What is that? I can't see.
That was my Kohl's Cash,
Oh, okay.
the tax-free weekend pass. Sorry.
So it's so many questions have popped up around that. Did he know that it was haunted when he bought it? Did he not know? Had he seen ghost hunters? Did he not see ghost hunters? Was this stuff a surprise? And that's what these places open the door up to.
Right.
If Robert Doobie owns Maplecroft, Lizzie Borden's house that she lived in after the trial, and it's worth $300,000. He's trying to sell it for $600,000 because of the reputation of it alone. Well, don't you think that if we went in there and we did an investigation and we came out saying, "Holy shit, this place is super haunted," that his asking price wouldn't be $750, or even more,
instantly,
and turn it into another haunted bed and breakfast.
And it's kind of like the what are the end results of that is that the paranormal still needs its bad guy, and so what it's done is if we become desensitized and have romanticized ghosts, then we've got to go to the next level, right? We've got to go to the next thing, and maybe that's why, as you were talking about on several of the shows you and I have been on, the jinn and the genie craze.
Mm-hmm.
As well as the demon craze and things like that. Like they are the freebase of the paranormal world, right? Because like if ghosts become cute and cuddly and warm and romantic enough for you to want to spend your money to go, we still need a bad guy, and that becomes these legions of dark forces that are coming to steal our souls, but never really seem to. Those shows. Isn't that great? They can have a great storyline like that. Like, we are able to stop the possession. We are able to. Oh my word! You just got so clear there for a second.
I did.
Yeah, you've been adjusting something. Oh, look at you. Go back.
No, I haven't adjusted anything.
Oh, okay. Well, stop moving because you were in focus there for a minute. Which I want you to be. I want you to be focused. What do you think about that? Like the paranormal freebasing. And what would be the next thing? What happens when we start to like demons?
I don't know. The problem that I have with it is all these things that are kind of the buzzwords and the popular aspect of it should all be things that people know about from the beginning. I actually think that, and this is my own belief as I get deeper and deeper into this stuff, I'm starting to think less and less about dead people. I really am. And I'm starting to think more and more about thought forms, right. about tulpas, about, these ghosts being a creation of ourselves, of our own minds, of something that we're putting forth. And I think that might be the next shift within the paranormal. I think you might have a lot of people and it's not going to be because it's the theory that makes the most sense. It's going to be because we haven't been able to definitively prove that it is dead people. So let's move on from dead people and try something else and see if that sticks.
Right.
And I think that thought forms are probably more acceptable to people than dead people. I think that's kind of the way that they want to go. But I'm going that way because I'm just looking at these trends, and I'm looking at the I guess you would say influx of ghost reports over the years. And that's a two-sided coin. I mean, in one way, is it that we have more ghosts now? Is it that, Zool's coming to New York, so now they're all coming out? Or is it more of a matter of now that we can talk about it freely, you get more reports now? I mean, it could go either way, but I really do think that we're creating ghosts, and we're putting ghosts in places where they didn't previously exist.
Do you think they exist with each other, or are you thinking that?
Yeah, it doesn't have to be either.
Really it doesn't explain the whole thing.
It doesn't have to be either or. I mean, I think that even if some ghosts are dead people, I think that some ghosts are a creation of ourselves. And I think it's more possible that every ghost is a thought form than it is that every ghost is a dead person.
Huh. I could probably play devil's advocate for that on that for a while if you wanted to. If we ever had a radio show, um, we debated these kinds of
Let's
things.
do it. Let's do that some night. That would be a good topic, and I think
Yeah.
that it would probably
Well, we
cause
had
a lot of
Nani.
controversy, though.
Because it's like saying that a Ouija board moves because you're moving it with your mind. You know what I'm saying? Like it's your thoughts, it's your telekinetic energy that's moving it.
Right.
I'm like,
And prove
okay,
to me that it isn't the case.
well, I guess what I'm trying to say is that okay, so what you're telling me is that ghosts don't exist, but my mind can move crap like that does exist. Like okay, that sounds like you're trying to to prove I'm wrong by using another thing that you shouldn't believe in. If like, so in other words, if you don't believe in ghosts, then what makes you think that telekinetic energy is in existence?
Well, it
You
all
know?
depends. I mean, my dead people theory of ghosts revolves around electrical impulses and electrical activity. So, and I'm not talking about EMF and all that kind of stuff. I'm just talking about an existing electrical form. And if that is the case, then I'm pretty sure that would be what your psychic abilities and your telekinetic abilities would be. It would just be manipulation of that energy that's around you. So I think that they would go hand in hand, but I also think that it's just as possible that just as we create ghosts out of that energy, I think that we can also create those movements out of that energy. So even though we feel like we're not doing it, we're doing it.
Right. But I guess my point is that, well, if that's possible, then why are ghosts not possible? Why are you so sure? And by you here, I don't mean you. I'm
Right.
saying that the people who are saying these things. Although we can extend it to you and your thought form argument. Why would one be more legitimate than the others? What I never was able to embrace them about because I'm like, okay, wait a minute, whoa. So you absolutely are closed-minded about the existence of ghosts, or even their communication through something as simple as a Ouija board, and yet you still think that I can do amazing things with my mind. It's like people who say that the telekinetic forces behind poltergeist happenings discredit the fact that ghosts exist because, well, see this one little example of a specific kind of paranormal activity that we've kind of been able to link to potentially being about people, and their what they do.
You will find.
Okay, but then that's one small aspect of things, and that to my opinion adds a huge big old asterisk to human existence to say that there is something conscious about what we think of as just electronic impulse.
Mm-hmm.
And so therefore wouldn't that be a perfect fertile breeding ground for ghosts?
I think, I mean, again, my position isn't to discredit the possibility of ghosts. It's just to bring in the idea of thought forms into the conversation. And just as the same thing with poltergeists, I mean, if you actually research poltergeist cases, you'll find that there is activity even when the focus of or the cause of the cause of the poltergeist activity isn't there. So when the teenage girl is not at home, shit still goes on. That's
right.
Because it's working hand in hand, and I think it's kind of a symbiotic relationship. So we say that the teenage girl, and I just use that because obviously there's a lot of theory that prepubescent females are the ones who can have the most incident. They seem to be the predominant cause. But so this teenage girl isn't manipulating energy to cause this paranormal phenomena. She's manipulating the already present spirit energy. You see what I mean? There was already ghosts in the house, and now she's just utilizing those ghosts through this process.
See, I think for me it would be more a poltergeist type situation would be more explained by the Jackie Barrett basement theory. which I'll say really quickly. I know I've told you before, and I think I've probably been on several radio shows together where I've talked about it too. Um, but just kind of like in a very compact way. Psychic Jackie Barrett was investigating something. She was called in by this guy who was having these horrible nightmares, this activity. It seemed to be located in the basement. It was his parents' house, his mother's house specifically, who had passed and he had inherited it. And when she went down the basement, she found the ghost of the little boy and a dark spirit, which she labeled a demon, down there too. And she could identify that the demon was feeding off the energy of the little boy. That the fear of the little boy was kind of feeding this demon. And she went upstairs and she kind of told this whole thing to the man. The man, kind of freaked out about it. And what it was he had been down in the basement. His mom was abusive and used to lock him down in the basement, a very child help it kind of situation. Mm-hmm. And he had become so scared down there, or I should say, he'd become so bored, he created like a playmate. And he used to talk to the playmate and play with the playmate. And then he used to get very scared because a dark figure used to come in there. And so his fear and his kind of sadness of all the abuse he was going through created this little boy, which was a reflection of him as a little boy, which this demon then continued to years, decades after, still continued to kind of feed in this kind of weird cycle of energy. Mm. And so, kind of using that as a backdrop, I think that I think that in poltergeist cases, they give off that energy, but it's not like it's not like each and every incident it comes from the energy that's flying out of their eyes.
Sure.
I think that they affect the environment, and that's what happens. So they don't need to be in the environment when the stuff actually happens for it to continue to live on after they've gone out of the room.
Sure.
So to me that feels more like it's their energy as opposed to using the energy that might already be there.
Oh, what's
I don't know. I think it's weird because as probably the most identifiable and creepy, scary kind of paranormal activity, it seems that poltergeists are the least ghostly.
Right.
They're kind of like the ones that whether you believe that psychic energy or telekinetic energy or like you were saying spirit energy, any of those things exist. They seem to be the ones that have so many identifiable markers. That to be explained away as being ghosts. And, it's kind of like by definition, once you've seen the ghost, it's no longer a poltergeist. Right. Is that your understanding?
That's how I would categorize it, yeah. I mean, and one of the things that I've always thought is very interesting in regards to poltergeist cases is John Zaffis once told me that when you have poltergeist activity as opposed to ghostly activity, but poltergeist activity, there's always a very strong smell of ozone whenever one of these poltergeist occurrences happen, and that you don't necessarily get that with ghosts. I mean, we go into haunted places all the time, we don't smell that ozone smell, but with poltergeist cases, and when he's talking poltergeist, he means centering around the mental abilities of a young child. There's that ozone smell, and that seems, I would put that with something is converting the energy in the air. Something is causing an ionization in the air to produce that ozone smell. Just as when you have a rainstorm on a hot day, and you smell the rain hitting the pavement, and that's what goes on. So there seems to be, even though it's olfactory, there seems to be some sort of physical evidence of that occurrence happening.
Right. And there's that makes complete sense. It's one of the kind of like the defining things, and everything in it is more intense, more energized. Mm-hmm. I mean, one of the things if you're an investigator, that you tell a family is, in almost, or in the vast majority of cases, there is no physical bad thing that's going to happen to you. And yet, poltergeist cases, that seems to be the very first thing that happens. Mm-hmm. And
I do want
to the time. Yep.
I was gonna say I do want to apologize first of all for name dropping John Zaffis.
I was gonna say it when you said it, but then I decided.
I feel like a douche now. But
we were on a show together, so we're allowed to do that, even though we weren't on the show at the same time.
Right? No, he told me that. He told me that in person.
Yeah. No, I know that. I'm just saying, So I think we can. You're allowed to drop that name now.
Right, but
because it was kind of like we were Skid Row. He was Bon Jovi in the Brotherhood tour on that show.
And I'm trying to, utilize John Zappas as somebody to say, here's somebody who has at least been in 30 or 40 of these cases over the years. But here's a question for you, kind of on what you were just talking about. Do you even hear about poltergeist reports anymore?
No.
It seems to me like every time there's a potential poltergeist case, it's demonic.
Right, jumps automatically to demonic.
It's a negative entity. It can't possibly be poltergeist.
And I wonder if to some degree, and this sounds really weird, but I wonder if, that psychic energy has found another way to dissipate as well. So let's assume for a moment that, it's not just media twisting it or people's perception of the activity as being demonic is part of the shift. But in fact, there actually is a paranormal shift that has happened. Mm-hmm. Partly because, this sounds like just let me go with it for a second before you completely think I'm crazy, but it might have something to do with social media. It might have to do with things like, Facebook, Twitter, because a 14-year-old now who is being abused or who is suffering abuse has an outlet that they never had before. I'm sorry if I'm boring you. I saw that yawn there.
No. Just being up since 5 and swimming for 4 hours today.
I'm not taking personally. How do we know that transfer of energy isn't actually being transferred to an electrical device? Mm-hmm. How do we know there's not something about those frantic texts that they have that is not somehow dissipating that energy in and of itself? You know what I'm saying?
I mean, you work with teenagers all the time.
Kind of the fervor from which they do it,
Not just that, you work with teenagers all the time, and you've worked with troubled teenagers in the past. I mean, how big, over the last 10, 15 years, how big has cutting become? There's another outlet for it. I mean, and I'm going to preface this too by saying that kids today are a bunch of pussies. Let's not forget that. There's been no softer group of young people ever in the history of the world except for right now. I mean, these kids are soft and they're spoiled. And I'm not trying to sound like a curmudgeon-y old man, but it's a different era. Right. And so they are more touchy-feely and with their feelings. I never would have sat around with my buddies and talked about, shit that goes on at home. But kids today would do that. And so by having that, I mean, the plus side of that for them is they're more expressive emotionally. So things aren't bottled up like they used to be either.
Right. Yeah, and they have these electronic outlets. You know what I'm saying? They can post. And they don't have to necessarily post as in like, Dad just sexually abused me.
Right.
But they can make contact with people. They can use electronics in a way that, I would have never imagined. I remember, dreaming of some of these things, kind of like, walking, my headphones just like this. There actually probably still this pair of headphones. These headphones are maybe older than some of our audience members even. And wishing like I could click my watch and talk to someone like Dick Tracy,
Yeah, you want to mind fuck right now? I'll tell you something that blew my mind.
Yeah, please, because that's what I just thought in my mind. I really could use a mind fuck right now.
Right, a nice slow long one. But think about this. You ever flipped over a Nintendo when you were a kid? A Nintendo Entertainment System? You ever flipped it over to the bottom side? You know that little plastic square in the middle that you pulled the little flap and it popped out? And nobody knew what the fuck that was for? Mm-hmm. Do you know what that was for?
No.
That was for a modem. In 1984, when they were producing those Nintendo Entertainment Systems, the idea was that those would be connected into the phone line and to allow people to utilize the Nintendo Entertainment System to communicate via phone lines with other people. In Japan, they had what was called Famicom, which was their version of Nintendo. I read an awesome book on Nintendo once, which is where I find all this stuff out. But
and you've been quoting it for years now.
Yes, and that device, the Famicom in Japan, they would plug that in and they would go to their bank account from their home TV. I mean, that's what it was for. Imagine if in 1985 we had been able to connect then through you know what I mean? Imagine just how different the world would have been through that. I mean, that just blows my mind to think, because I didn't try the internet for the first time till I was a senior in high school, and even then I only tried it like once or twice, and I didn't really use it till I was in college.
Wow, how old are you again?
I'm 34.
34. Okay, so there's a little bit of because I mean, when I was in college, it was just coming out. You know, so like I remember. I mean, you could sign on to things. I remember Pete Panini had the computer, and you could actually sign on and download a picture, and it only took like 17 hours.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And then you could edit it. And I remember he used to put penises on everybody, like get these pictures of hot girls and put penises on. He's got his own issues. We're not going to talk about that. So I was kind of like my college experience. The internet hit with things like Pegasus and what systems I used after I graduated from college. Although for about 6 months I had the highest the highest poker score on Progeny.
Nice.
Because my dad working for defense contractors, they were online before anybody else, and he would actually sign into the BAE, what is now BAE, and play poker against these like 40-year-old men, and I was like 12, which is really creepy. But anyway,
I remember the old A/S/L question mark when you went to a chat room.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Anyway, so now that we're done talking about how we were creeps on the internet, what were we talking about? Well, I do want to.
I guess what I'm saying is that I maybe that has something to do with it. I think that there are so many other ways for teens to express themselves, and it's funny because when we talk about poltergeist, we talk about teens, and I think we really in our mind think of that 13, 14, 15-year-old. Right. But it seems to be a pattern. If you really look at a lot of these cases, there seems to be, if you kind of make that your tunnel vision, you're not getting it, because I think it has more to do with kind of the Klingon life cycle, if you will, than it does just puberty.
Right.
So if you think about the fact that if you look at human, I don't know if this was intentional or it just happened to be, like a synchronicity kind of thing. But every 7 years, you're a different person. You go through a major thing. So if you think of baby, if you think of then from a baby, a 7-year-old, which is where my son is at right now, he's someone who I don't even recognize anymore. 13, 14, extending that out, 17, and then if you kind of, continue to extend that, you even kind of got like the 35, early 40s, 42. Isn't 42 when midlife crisis hits? Isn't 32, 35 what they say a woman's sexual peak is, because if you look at, so it's much more about this 56 being kind of like primary menopause. I'm talking in terms that are making people very uncomfortable, but it's really this telekinetic energy that we're talking about with poltergeist exists in people who are going through those 7-year cycles. So even though we think of it as just being young teenage girls whose daddies are touching them, it actually, if you really look at a lot of the cases, it involves those 7-year cycles.
Well, I want to go back there for a second, because I know that you were saying, there's not always, and that's kind of a misconception, there's not always the abuse or the disruptive family environment that causes these poltergeist cases either. I mean, a lot of times, just the sheer change in the person is enough. I can tell you that in the case of my own family's haunting, my aunt and uncle's haunting, I did some serious digging amongst them to find out, gee, is it because, long story short, it looks like we're getting a chance to go into the house years later after they've moved out and getting a chance to investigate because shit's still going on. But, looking into the case to try to figure it out, I wanted to find out if it was a potentially poltergeist thing around my cousin, who she was, a young teenage prepubescent girl at the time. And, there was issues between the parents, but there wasn't really any issues between the children and the parents. Right. And, and I find that in some of the poltergeist cases that I've read about, that can be the case. Just the physical changes of the body, just the emotional changes of puberty, that can be enough to trigger these poltergeist things. So I just wanted to point that out because I know what you meant when you said, their daddies are touching them, but I just wanted to point out that it doesn't have to be that way.
No, we pack our car in the same garage on that one, brother. Which is kind of what I was saying, is that I think it has so much more to do with biochemistry and bioelectricity than it does that, And I think another great example of that, like you were saying with your family, is I always refer to this as the Essex County case because that's how little I'm allowed to give of the information about it.
Sure, I know.
And it's the same kind of thing. It happened almost instantaneously with her beginning her menstrual cycle, a 14-year-old girl. And I have pressed this and pressed this and pressed this, and no one in that house wants to admit or thinks that there is any kind of abuse going on whatsoever. And yet it happened right during that huge physical change, which I think, we have to keep in mind is the result of that is emotional. It's a physical, biological thing that has and all of those things that I just mentioned, all those stages I just mentioned. It's not coincidence, I think, that we think, why is voting, and things like that not 20, right? Like why 21 or 18? And I think that 18 has a lot to do with, after 18, you're kind of going into that adult cycle that we were talking about, those 7-year thing. And then, with the 21 being kind of like, now you're able to do things that you weren't able to do before. President at 35, once again, another number divisible by 7. It's kind of, it's weird that we have kind of naturally fallen upon that thing. And I think that has if you look at a lot of poltergeist cases, they seem to coincide with those numbers, not just the young teenage girl.
I would be interested to see, too, how many of the poltergeist teenage girls of, 12 and 13 go on to become the psychics and the mediums of 35, 45,
Right. That's an excellent point. Yeah, I mean, and I think you can maybe work that backwards, because I know a lot of people who have psychic ability when you ask them their first experiences, they often say, when I was like 7 years old, you know what I'm saying? Or when I first started elementary school, I saw this guy who was in there and he talked to me. It's if you work it backwards, why don't we have a survey? That sounds like a really good Facebook question. Hey, psychics, when was your first experience?
And, yeah, we'll work on that. We'll put it up. Yeah, because I would like to find out, see if there is a link between that. Because I've always thought that there was. I've always thought that these, they always talk about how they had abilities when they were younger. So I want to know what the extent of those abilities were. I had abilities when I was younger, and I lived in a haunted house. Well, maybe your house was haunted because you had those abilities.
Right. No one else would listen. I came to her because no one else seemed to be able to hear me.
Yeah, I think, sounds like your mic is crapping out.
Maybe your mic is crapping out.
No, mine's pretty good.
Okay, that's actually not. It's actually cut out a few times. But I decided not to make it public and judge you.
No, but yours is getting really muffled, and I can see in the picture and the video screen that you're not doing anything that would muffle it. So that's why I just wanted to make you aware of that.
Okay. My voice is a little bit muffled. It's kind of. I'm going into talking straight for 8 hours in front of people, in front of those troubled teens we were just referring to.
I do want to tell you my little Cengage story.
Okay, you have to tell me your Cengage story.
I got an email this week from a research assistant who is working with the editors of a work put out by Cengage called Opposing Viewpoints that apparently they put out in libraries and schools and anywhere where they need these reference materials where they put different sides of an argument and they give it to classrooms as a teaching tool. And
I think people need to understand just for Cengage, not a ghost book company. They're not Schiffer.
No, they're not.
They are textbooks.
They're as dry can be.
Right. Okay, which is why the whole Picture Yourself series with ghost stuff thrown in was such a huge experiment for them. Continue.
Well, I probably shouldn't release this information necessarily but they didn't tell me that it's, I didn't sign any NDAs or anything, so they didn't tell me not to put it there. But they're working on a volume called Opposing Viewpoints, Paranormal Phenomena. And they're putting together one of these, pros and cons types of works directly related to the paranormal. And they actually asked me if they could publish my Why I Believe in Ghosts article that ran on the Standard Times that we had up on SpookySouthcoast.com for years. They want to publish that.
So ghostvillage.com? Yes.
So it's probably where they found it. So they want to publish that in the book. So I am actually going to be noted scholar of the paranormal, which I'm pretty fired up about, and I'm getting a nice payday.
Did they go to a person who actually wrote a book for them about the paranormal and who's smarter than you?
Yeah, exactly.
Better looking.
Exactly. But I was I was pretty fired up about it, and we were negotiating the the fee for it, and I didn't want to tell them the whole time like I am totally going to let you just do this anyway. That would have been bad negotiation. But how awesome is that? They're going to send me a copy of the book after it comes out.
$500. You should get $500.
Which
if you get anything less than $500, I didn't pay you.
Well, we can talk about that. I don't want to put let's just say any amount is pretty good when it's a story that you already got paid for 4 or 5.
Right. When you're double dipping your own crap.
Yeah. So, but
not that it was crap, Tim.
The cool thing, no, it's one of the pieces that I'm most proud of. But
that's good.
What's cool about it though is that they're sending me a copy of the book. I mean, and that's not going to be something that's going to be. You can't just order one of these when they come out. So we're going to have a copy of that, and that's going to just be a huge reference source for us. And I'm trying to talk them into making it publicly available to people in the paranormal field because I think that would actually have a pretty good market for both sides of the coin.
I wonder if they're going to use any of my stuff kind of like we own part of this and so therefore we can publish it. We have North American rights to this.
Yeah, I'm sure you did sign a contract that allows them to republish it in annotated form and in collective form and
Right. So wouldn't it be funny if we were a point counterpoint on something?
It would be because we could have told them that we could have written them a much better one, with something fresh. But hey. And I would have started off my argument. I would have let you go first, and then I would have started off my argument with, Chris, you ignorant slut.
And then I would have, in honor of Brad Trolson, who does the theme music, I would have said, Tim, if you don't understand that, I don't know what planet you're from.
Explain it to me like a 2-year-old.
Okay, so what you're telling me is, these are all really good ways that we use to make our opponents feel absolutely silly and stupid so that we can feel better about ourselves when we make an argument.
Yes. I like to make myself feel better.
I just like to make other people feel bad. I can't feel better. I can't. It doesn't even help. It just makes the pain a little less. But, I just like to make other people feel bad. Does that make me evil?
I suck, and now you should suck too.
Right. Be yourself unless you suck.
Now, I thought there was something else that we need to talk about.
I want to know your views on Starborn.
Yes.
Alien abductions, because I gotta be honest with you, like, I am not the biggest fan of Aliens. The movie, I love the movie Aliens, but
I'd never seen that until this weekend. Can you believe that?
I've got to fucking be kidding
any
me.
of the Alien films until this past weekend. I watched. I've just started Alien Resurrection, and I haven't been able to finish it. I was going to watch it tonight, but we decided to do the show. So,
Alien Resurrection, originally written by
Joss Whedon.
Joss Whedon did until they changed almost everything, but still kept his name on it.
Not
anyway.
Not to his liking. I just recently found out that Joss Whedon was one of the writers of Toy Story.
That is one of the three really big awards that he's been nominated for is for Toy Story.
So, but anyway,
if anyone else in the audience can name the other two nominations he received, please email us and you will get a free copy of Tim's book because I really didn't enjoy it and so I'm going to give it back.
You
can get your free copy of The Devil I Know. Did you get your copy yet?
Not yet, no.
Okay, she emailed me about 17 times about getting your address so she'd get your copy out. So
right.
it might be coming Pony Express. So if a horse pulls up at your house,
no. I have this fear going on that it's gonna be hand delivered at my front door by Ronnie fucking DeFeo.
You know, we're gonna get to was it Debbie who was on?
Audrey.
We're gonna get to them in one second, but I just want to say, like, I didn't really get to finish the story. If anyone listened to the broadcast of Dave's show, Dave Schrader's show, my son actually had a physical response to getting it from the mailbox.
Really?
He actually went in, got the rest of the mail, almost like jerked his hand back like he was like avoiding a rat trap or something, and then came up and said, there's a book in there, but I'm not getting it. Or there's a package, he said, but I'm not getting it. And it was a package thing. It's not like he sent a copy of the book with like a stamp on it. No, there was
it's in a manila envelope or whatever, right? Yeah.
You know, typical kind of one that I've got
padded
all over
mail, yeah, like
right. And it very much. If do you remember like one of the original, really good? It might have been In Search Of. What was the Leonard Nimoy one? That was In Search Of, right? And they had that really good Amityville one where they had the little girl and she would be humming and she would stop humming when she reached a certain part of the house. Like she'd be singing and then she would stop and then as soon as she got like past the room for I think it was, she would begin to sing again. Huh. Like almost like there was something in the room that made it so she couldn't sing when she was walking by it. That's the way my son's been with this book. He's unconscious to him or unconsciously to him because he doesn't know where it was. But those first few days I had it, I moved from place to place, and I moved it to one other place because I was doing some research for that show just to see kind of her story that she told me originally held up in the book. And my son...
You can tell us the truth. You basically moved her from the couch to the toilet and then back to the couch again. That's how we do research.
I was actually going to say, from outside to my car to the couch to the... I don't do a lot of reading on the couch only because TV's there, and I don't like those two to fight.
Yeah.
TV always wins.
TV wins.
All the time, and it should. But my son it's really weird. He would take these weird paths where he would be walking, and he would get to where the book was, but he couldn't see the book, and something made him go around that area and then continue on his path.
I think you should burn the book.
I haven't finished it yet, and it's actually not half bad.
I've heard that. I've been reading some reviews, and they say it's actually kind of well written.
Right, like I thought I was like, oh my word. I kept saying, Jackie, if you want to send it to me, I'll help you edit it. And thank heavens I didn't. It would crash my computer again. But I was actually like, hey, this is kind of interesting. And I skipped parts because I was trying to get like, okay, yep, you were 4 here, you were 7 in this chapter. I was trying to get like some quick kind of like points on it. And I was like, hey, this isn't bad writing that she's doing here. So, but anyway.
Well, schizophrenic people can usually create in a very cohesive manner. Just putting that out there. Actually, I'm not saying that she is, but and Katzenbach would be game for having that 3-way conversation if we can get all parties to agree.
And I think we should work at that. You know?
I mean, obviously, I want to have Jackie come on and talk about the book separately first, but the potential is there to do that, and I think Quarantino would go for it too. And
I don't see why they can't have. Well, I mean, maybe they can't because as Pete Townsend said, they might have been your heroes, but they were my fucking friends.
Right.
This isn't you and I chit-chatting about Amityville. This is 3 people whose lives were intertwined with this. Although not Katzenbach, the Chris and Chris especially, and then Jackie.
Well, no, Katzenbach's life has been completely torn apart by this. But from the DeFeo murder research side, more than the paranormal side. What's funny about it, though, is apparently, from what Ryan was saying, again, I haven't gotten the book yet, so I don't know, but he's saying that Jackie is claiming that Geraldine was actually DeFeo's aunt. So, if they got married, then how are they?
Right. I think, because you and I were talking about this the other night, I think that, after Jackie's on, we have to have, a post-game interview, a post-game spooky Crossroads to discuss some things about her. I don't want to, I don't want to talk too much before people have had a chance to kind of get her view on things. But we've talked about my thoughts on that.
Right.
I think she's got her world.
Right.
And the end result is what matters, not the details sometimes.
Exactly.
Which I don't think.
I don't know how much I trust this Geraldine character anyway, so, I mean,
it's, I guess,
Did something just power down in your house?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because we're talking about this. You know how that happens.
I know, that's what I'm starting to get worried, because it sounded kind of creepy, and, you know how things go when we start talking Amityville. And in fact, almost to the point where I might say, we should probably change the subject for tonight.
Yes. And we're not going to talk about all the people who are emailing me wanting to, take the demons out of my house.
Yeah, because
I wanted to talk about UFOs. Because this is what happens.
We have about 15 minutes left before I'm going to have to call it a night. So let's.
Okay. I want to know what you thought about what she was saying this weekend. And I had texted you being like, forget me. Don't bring me on tonight for my little thing. Mm-hmm. Like, go with it. And you responded back that this was something you wanted to get into on a bigger scale on Spooky Southcoast. We don't have to get into it too much here, but I really kind of know where you kind of stand on this whole thing, because we've talked about, I want to have one show, maybe when you guys are doing an event where anyone, best argument, comes on and convinces me that aliens are real. And so I want to know kind of where you stood on the Starborn appearance this weekend.
Well, let me say that I believe that aliens are 100% real. But I don't necessarily believe that they're beings from outer space. Okay. There is something happening to the people that...
Do you read their thought forms too? Is that going to be your unified theory of the paranormal now?
It could possibly be. It could possibly be.
And I'll just be
I think that to the people who have these experiences, they are having legitimate experiences. They're not misjudging anything. They're not reading the wrong thing into something. I mean, this is what is happening to them. I just don't necessarily believe that they're beings from outer space that are doing this. I think that there could be some, smoke and mirror stuff happening. I do think that because we're a more technologically advanced society now, our boogeyman is more technologically advanced. But, that being said...
Wait, hold on one second for me. What do you mean by smoke and mirrors?
I think
Are you saying government conspiracy?
No, I'm saying that these aliens are, the Stan Winston creature version of whatever should be scary to us right now.
Okay.
I don't think it's coincidence that it was post-World War II that we started having all these UFOs showing up in mainstream media. I know there's been UFO reports before that, but I'm just saying, like, in mainstream view of things, it was post-World War II, Cold War era, nuclear war era, where we really started to see these. And I don't think it's coincidence that you see a lot of correlation between demonic descriptions and alien descriptions. But anyway.
And Pukwudgie descriptions and alien.
Right, and it's just it's a boogeyman, and that's the way it goes. Or some people say bogeyman, but that's what it is, and it's the way that we need to perceive it in this day and age.
So you go as far as say all boogeymen are a representation of the life and time during which they're created.
Yes, that's how they're effective.
Which is an expression we've used several times. The Gorski rule of the paranormal.
Yes.
Okay.
If our boogeyman was something that we couldn't relate to, then it would lose that power. And we can even get into some other time about why the boogeyman even exists. But I think that the twins have had...
That being said, people can feel free to go back and listen to the Freddy Krueger episode that we did, because that was a really good... I think we explored a lot of that crap really well.
Right.
Okay, continue.
And
the twins.
But I think the twins have had legitimate experiences. I know people, and I don't want to get into names, but someone who knew them and knew their life situation growing up has suggested to me that the alien experiences are a cover story for something else that happened. And by cover story, I mean coping mechanism.
Right.
And I don't really want to speak out of turn and really get into all that, because it's not my place. But that's a common perception amongst people who've had these experiences, that it may just be the way that their mind processes what happened to them in a different fashion.
Right.
I don't necessarily think that's the case. These two women are being abducted repeatedly, and they are being taken against their will. That's what they believe. Now, Moniz, who has worked with them for many years, who knew them when all this stuff was going on in the old days, before he was even doing all this stuff, believes them 100%. And, you know, apparently they've disappeared from the room with other people in the room. I mean, this kind of thing is what goes on.
Your avatar also puts a lot of faith in what they say as well.
No, my avatar does not.
No?
No.
Okay, then that's changed pretty recently then.
No. The first time I met my avatar was the one that told me that it's all BS. We'll talk about that some other time off the air.
Okay, with you. Okay.
I do want to get into that with you, because it makes a world of difference, especially when you want to start delving into what that person is involved in and isn't involved.
A wink's as good as a nod to a blind man, my friend.
So, it sounds like I'm talking in circles here about this, but it's because I'm talking in code here. But you know, these things are happening to them. I find it hard to believe, however, that they could be happening for as long as they have, and for the prolonged and sustained intensity that they have, and for them to not be able to answer some questions. And that's why I wanted to cut it short, because I want to really get into the chance to explore things with them. And I know that some people will listen to that show and they thought I was trying to trick Audrey a little bit with the questions I was asking. But I wasn't. I genuinely want to know, if you are being abducted by aliens, I want to know what they've told you as to why. I want to know what they told you as to why they go about it the way they do. I would think it would be a logical question that if you're being taken by these beings repeatedly, it's got to be, I mean, I'm sure it's traumatic, but there's got to be at some point when, you know, there is interaction between the two, and you should be able to ask them these questions and get some answers. Especially if you are in a position like they are, where you are forming an organization that is supposed to help other people that is going through the same process. Don't you think that it would be a far less traumatic experience if we could definitively say, yes, aliens are abducting people, but don't worry, it's just a scientific evaluation to help us go through some coming changes that are coming down the line for us, and to help us be better prepared. You know, if you had that kind of explanation, it would clear things up. The fact that you can be abducted 45 times in your life, and every time it's scary, I don't understand that. And you know what I'm saying? And that's where I don't want to say my believability wavered in what they were saying, but that's where I kind of scratched my head and raised an eyebrow a little bit.
Right, and I think that those kinds of things are why it's very hard for me to embrace the alien field fully anyway. You know, because those elements don't make any sense.
If something that dramatic was happening to me against my will frequently throughout my entire life, and there was nothing I could do about it, and I was going to go through that trauma, and I would have to live in constant fear that it was going to happen, I would probably kill myself. And I'm I'm not a big proponent of suicide at all, but I would probably kill myself before I would live that way, because living that way would probably kill me otherwise. I just don't understand. But again, maybe that's why they take the people that they do. Maybe they're taking a specific, personality. I don't know. But the fact.
Well, and I think the once again to play the other side of that, if they were abducting people who can't take it, we would know because they would have killed themselves.
Right. I mean,
you know what I'm saying? So, like, I guess
we hear very few reports of people who are willing abductees, and which I guess would negate the term abductee, but who are willing to go, and who want to go and are volunteering for the program in some way. There are people that say that they do, but that doesn't mean that they're being taken for that reason. It just means that they've come up with some kind of acceptance for what's happening to them. The fact that it remains scary is what I keep going back to. It makes me think that whatever is happening because it's a boogeyman. Because that's why there needs to be that fear.
And I was going to ask, I mean, she said, more importantly, why she continues to fear? Is it one of those things where she's like, because if I stop fearing, it becomes like a mundane thing. It becomes like, it means that I've surrendered somehow? Or was she able to be like, no, because each time is scary?
Well, that's one of the things that I want to delve into further with them in the future, and why I want to have them both on at the same time, because, and I want to wait till they're up here, because it's easier to do that in person.
Right.
Especially with them, because, like, I can't tell one voice from the other on the phone, really. But that's the thing about it is, it's almost like no matter what answer you can give, you can kind of talk in circles around it, and you can kind of, there's always little cop-outs in it. And I'm not saying cop-out like I think they're making it up, but there's always a cop-out for every question. Because it is such an unknown quantity, you can always kind of come back to, well, they say, we're not meant to know that, or we're not understand that, we can't comprehend that. And
right.
There's just too many of those loose holes for me. And I know this drives Moniz crazy, and I can't talk about this on the air all the time necessarily, because when I do, he kind of jumps to the defensive. Because nobody wants to think that they've been going out and investigating boogeyman reports for 25, 30 years.
Right.
But there is the possibility that every abduction report is no different than, a kid screaming from their bedroom, "Mom, Dad, I had a nightmare."
I'm with you. What I want to know is this. If they're such an advanced society that they can travel the distance to be from another planet, let's say, if they've somehow been able to harness some kind of intertechnology that they're able to travel through time, like, time travel is another big UFO alien theory. Have they become so technologically advanced they don't know how to communicate and they can't come up with an analogy that would make us understand things? I mean, I teach some pretty dumb kids, and my job is to make them understand things that they don't want to understand and that they don't have time to understand and that they have trouble understanding. So if they become so advanced that they can travel through time or travel across the galaxy, but they can't come up with an analogy for help us understand, like, the complexity of who they are.
Here's why. Here's how we talk around that. We're not supposed to understand. By giving us the information and allowing us to understand, we've tainted the sample. So if we were to know the plan, it would jeopardize the plan being in place.
But doesn't just knowing that there's a plan jeopardize it as well?
Well, that's assuming that they've admitted that there's a plan.
And that's the circle that I'm talking about. And the problem is that I think even more than the ghost world, there are so many aspects of it. No one's ever really come out and said, I guess there are people that have that said, there's some kind of government conspiracy about ghosts, or demons, or Bigfoot, although I'm sure there are some fringe people that have said that as well. But that's a huge element of the UFO field. And so it makes it even more kind of nebulous to quote Timbanal, of like, what, how do I even know how to approach this? I mean, it seems like you can't do anything, and it's really hard to focus on one aspect of it because there doesn't seem to be anyone who's an authority on all aspects of it. And there's such huge conflicts between those competing theories.
Right. There's nobody who does this and encompasses all. If we wrote a book about ghosts, if we wrote ourselves or combined a book about what is the essence of ghosts, we would have to combine all those different theories.
Right.
And for some reason with ufology, you don't have to do that.
Well, and make it good for all time zones, because UFO people fall into the camp of being zany, or being crazy, or being too earthy-feely, or being too, like they've been in darkened rooms looking at papers from the government for too long. And so it's really hard to find. I guess Nick Redfern would be a really good example of someone who can communicate and is an expert.
Chicken and the egg, though. I mean, is it the topic turned them into that, or were they like that before they explored the topic?
Right. Regardless, I can't listen to them. but I'm with you. Like, is that are people drawn into it because that's their mentality? Completely. That's a really interesting point to roll around in your head. Again, you probably ask those people when was the first time you had your UFO experience, or that you were into UFOs.
Well, I'm not talking about UFO experiences. I'm talking about.
I guess we should be very specific that we're making a distinction between UFO cases and alien abduction.
Because UFO cases, I think, happen, extremely frequently to all different kinds of people. Abduction is a different story, and
right.
I can't ignore the fact that a lot of abductees want to feel special. I can't ignore the fact that a lot of abductees may be the type of personality that wouldn't question why they were being taken. I mean,
right.
that could be part of it. I mean, that could be why they're targeted. Maybe that's why, and God help me, I hope to God I never have to go through it, if it is real, and I hope that nobody I know ever has to go through it. But maybe that's why it wouldn't happen to me, because I would be that inquisitive mind, and I would be more of a hindrance than I would be a help to them.
Right.
And
you would be probing them while they're probing you.
I think a lot of that stuff is exaggerated.
But you understand.
But I mean, do you not find? Let me ask you this though: for an advanced species that can fly across galaxies, or travel through time, or come up from the center of the Earth, or however you want to believe they get here, do you not believe that they could have a better way of scanning our bodies than to shove something up our asses?
I mean, that's why it doesn't make sense to me. You know what I'm saying? Or that they wouldn't be able to wipe your mind of the experience, so that they would be guaranteed, like you were talking about, if there's some kind of experiment going on to taint it.
Right. And here's the thing, though. Look at the archetypes of it all. A probe. What's a probe? A big fucking needle.
Right.
And what is pretty much everybody on Earth afraid of? You know what I mean? The description of the experiences that they have happen sounds like the most horrific visit to the doctor that you could ever experience. And
well,
so
it sounds like rape to me.
And that as well. You know what I mean?
Which is the
complete loss of control. It's complete loss of understanding. And it's everything that we fear all combined into one experience. And I don't know. To me, that just doesn't seem... I look at the animal kingdom, and I made this analogy on the show, and I that it's kind of a tag and release program. No different than what we do to the great whites that keep showing up off of Cape Cod here. But do you think that when the shark gets picked up out of the water and tagged and they do whatever they're doing, do you think that they get scared? Do you think that they have this same emotional response that we have? I mean, to me, it seems like the experience is made to be everything that we're afraid of.
Right.
There's no... And Moniz will talk around this to me and be like, hey, I've dealt with cases where people have met each other on the ship and then met each other later on in life and didn't know anything about each other, but both could relate the fact that they met each other on the ship. I'm not saying that there isn't that chance because...
And you were there, and you were there,
right,
and you were there.
But there's obviously a greater collective consciousness that's causing this to happen. So I don't discredit that possibility that they're meeting on the ship, so to speak, because they're both in this greater collective consciousness in order to have it happen.
Right, and I also think that if you're walking down the street, you see a ton of people that you know, because you're like, oh wait, that's not Tim Weisberg, that's some dude I don't know, because we Matrix, right? We and when you go the next step further, once you've identified it's a human face, which is the most recognizable thing to us, it becomes the most recognizable people within that spectrum of people that you know. So once it's a face, now it's the face of someone you know. And so I think, especially if it's something that's so kind of backwards and traumatic, that we insert people into it, and so it could be, you see that face and it really looks like something that happened there, and then all of a sudden it is. It's kind of like 12 monkeys. Over the course of the flashbacks, all the people who are part of the story start to become clearer and clearer as people that are in the airport.
But then, we're talking both sides remember each other. So is it because one person's prone to suggestion? I don't know. But think about it like this too. Like, I live in a town of 20,000 people, which is a small town when you think about it. And I can drive every day through this intersection that I go to get to my house, where I have to wait between two red lights. And all these cars are passing by me on the other side very slowly. And it amazes me that as many people as I know in this town, and as long as I've lived in this town, 20 plus years now, that every day I go through that line, and I never recognize a single person.
Right. Right.
But yet, these people are abducted, and they happen to run into the people that they met on the ship. Now, Moniz thinks that it's because it's being arranged for them to meet, that they're supposed to meet, that they're being, match made on the ship.
Right.
Excuse me.
I think it's like when really bad things happen to you, and you really embrace the idea that everything bad happens for a reason. There are so many aspects, and maybe I'm ignorant or blind to the fact that these things happen in the areas of the paranormal that I'm into. But it just seems within the UFO/abduction field, making the distinction of them both, that it's like, that there's so much of that kind of rationale behind it. It's kind of like, all right, well, let me think for a few minutes about how I can get around that whole issue that you just said, because because it's God's will.
Right.
Everything happens for a reason. Yeah, well, maybe they were abducted and they took only those two people from that town because they wanted to have both a male and a female. Okay, well, then are there people from... No, because they wanted to specifically see what people were going to be doing on this latitude. I mean, you can really make that argument.
Right.
It's like you said time and time again, it's like taking any 3 points and saying that it's a triangle of paranormal activity, I mean, you can, to some degree do it any way you want. You can make these connections any way you want, so...
I mean,
what I guess I would want is, and I've said this before, a clear-cut, communicative person who can sit down with me, explain this, and it's okay if there's a little bit of double talk, and I guess one of the other things that really discourages me with people in the ghost field too, is I want someone to be like, you know what, dude, we don't know.
Yep.
As opposed to, because I'm saying things that most people in the world would consider outrageous, I'm going to come up with a reason for everything that I say. Even if the reason makes you take a leap of faith you're not ready to make. I would rather have someone be completely honest and be like, you know what, dude, we don't know. What do you think? It's really hard to find those kinds of people within any of these fields, because they feel like they need to defend themselves and have an answer for everything, because they're talking about things that most people think they're crazy for getting into.
And I think it's just human nature to have an answer.
Right. You know, and it's one of the things that, you know, as a teacher, the expectation always is that a teacher knows everything. And so I have my kids ask me questions that have nothing to do with my subject matter, and they expect me to know the answer. And one of the best things I've learned as a teacher is to say, you know, what, dude, that's a really amazing question. I have no idea. I think I know some people who might. Let's take that journey together. You know, and I think that, you know, as communicators of the paranormal, we're automatically defensive.
Right.
As I was coughing, you were supposed to fill that dead air.
No, I'm fading fast.
I'm with you. All right, so I want to bring up this alien topic again some week because
Definitely.
it's the thing I'm most ignorant about, and it's the thing I'm most willing to learn about and to be taught about, and yet no one's stepping up to the plate. So whether it be here or whether we do it on a weekend where we can actually have a guest on Spooky Southcoast who can do it, I want to be convinced, or I want to have someone come up with a really good argument that makes me think, because this just makes me go, dude, really? So
about the existence of UFOs, or about the
no,
about abduction?
About abduction and
Okay.
aliens, because I don't think UFOs are always necessarily aliens. I think that the two are connected, but not always. So, can you make that pledge to me?
I do.
I
I can, but I just can't. I mean, in my somewhat voluminous knowledge of who are the talking heads within the field, I don't know if there's an answer to that. I don't know if there's a person that can explain it to you that's not going to seem fringe.
And fringe is okay as long as it's, you know, if they can take you on
by
their
fringe, I was nicely saying fucking nuts.
It's fucking crazy.
You know, we're looking at more, you know, Nigel Kerners and Michael Allegians and all those. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with them. I'm just saying that they're passionately tied into one viewpoint.
You know, maybe it's about time to revisit Mike Hollowell. Wasn't he going to be working on aliens and kind of stuff? He seemed like a solid guy.
Yeah, you
he
know,
seemed like the feet on the ground kind of guy.
The problem is I think the people that get into the UFO thing with the best of intentions of following it down the middle just get pulled.
Right.
I mean, the best person that we could ever have had on the show to talk about this would have been J. Allen Hynek, and you know, of course, he's no longer with us. But I always wanted to that would be a dream interview of mine, to be able to ask him, you know, why the flip? Why were you with Blue Book, and then why did you flip? You know, what did you learn that made you change your mind to say, instead of disproving these, I have to, you know, just agree that they're real?
You know who I think is going to be the best person for this kind, or the type of person who's going to be the best person to convince me?
Don't say Whitley Strieber.
Is not necessarily a believer, and not necessarily a researcher, but someone who has documented different viewpoints.
You know who's going to convince me? I know the guy who's going to convince you, but I just don't think that he's done enough digging into it yet, or if he plans on it.
Who?
Steve Volk.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. And that was actually the phrenology idea was popping into my head too, as we were saying that. You know, and so I'm interested to see where he goes now that he's gotten a little bit of taste of this, or as Uncle Fadouch said, you know, wet his beak a little bit. I wonder if he's going to continue with this kind of research, because I can guarantee that this book was a bigger success than his previous one, which had nothing to do with paranormal.
My fear is that he just goes back and does something else.
I don't know, man. He's doing a lot of media lately.
He's been blogging quite a bit.
So, all right. So we are going to say goodnight for tonight with a pledge, or as my little 3-year-old says, pick a promise, that we're gonna pick this up, be it on Spooky Southcoast or be it here on Spooky Crossroads, that we're going to come up with really solid arguments that can kind of allow me to stew my brain a little bit, and like always, I hope that the stuff we've talked about, the crap that we've kind of laid out there tonight, kind of get you stewing on some of the things we've talked about, and please, this show is designed for feedback. This show is designed to have you guys contribute. So remember, you can contact us at spookycrew at SpookySouthcoast.com, or Balzano at SpookySouthcoast.com, or Tim at SpookySouthcoast.com. We're both on Facebook. We want to get what we've allowed your mind to kind of do, and spit the crap out that we've kind of put inside your brain. So I am Chris Balzano here in the sunny state of Florida. He's Tim Weisberg in the still sunny state of Massachusetts. For everyone here on the Spooky TV network of programming, have a wonderful night, and that's what's haunting me.